Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our session today. Today, we're going to be focusing on new quizzes versus classic quizzes. So we'll do a comparison between the two quizzing tools and highlight the features of both, and then help you kind of make a decision about maybe which one you want to explore. I know right now at your institution, you're using classic quizzes at the moment, but this will give you an idea of what the options are available as well on new quizzes. My name is Deshara Jackson, and I am a consultant here at Instructure, and I'll be presenting for you today. So our first question, just to kind of get us started, is what are the most important features for you when it comes to a quizzing platform? So what are you looking for if you're creating quizzes inside of your Canvas course? What are some of the features that are really important to you? Feel free to pop those answers in the chat, or since we're a small group, feel free to unmute yourself. And as you're thinking, some of the features, quiz polls, exactly. For me, automated grading for, multiple choice, true, false, any of those types of things. The ability to moderate or give accommodations as needed. Some students, we may have to remove time limits or give them additional time. Shuffling questions and answers, and I see your head shaking. Yeah, so all of those different things are some of the things I think about when choosing a quizzing tool or what I'm looking for when I create assessments. So we're going to take a look at a document that breaks down, and I'm going to pop this in the chat as well, some of the highlights of what's the differences between classic quizzes and new quizzes. So classic quizzes is the original quizzing tool that was built into Canvas, and new quizzes is an LTI that is owned by Instructure, and it is included inside of all Canvas courses that was added a few years ago and has a couple different enhancements to it. And so when you take a look at this document here, it does have the classic quiz sunsetting timeline, but we did just receive some updates late last week that we are no longer going to have an end of life date at this point for classic quizzes. So both quizzing tools will stay. They're still going to, and they, or it being the product team, is still going to go through and update new quizzes with the promises and things that have been asked. But this will give that team a little bit more time to perfect that process, as well as get feedback from you all as users about what things you enjoy, what are some areas that need to be improved. But this guide does break down what items are available on new quizzes versus classic quizzes. And this will help you as you're starting out using Canvas. You're probably using classic quizzes at the moment, but this will help you make a decision once this option is turned on if you want to try to use this tool going forward. In just a moment, I'll show you an example, and we'll go through kind of a high-level walkthrough of things that are different on both. But this is a much more granular document, and it is updated and maintained by our product team. So if you save this link, and Sabrina, this is something I'll provide as a resource as well, you can go back to this document and take a look at what updates or changes are coming. So I'm going to pause just to ask for you that are using classic quizzes at the moment, are there any things that you feel like it's missing?
I'm sorry, did you ask about classic quizzes?
About classic quizzes, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No worries.
No, I'm not quite sure. I'm barely transferring, so I was trying to get through the apps and navigating through it.
Okay.
I don't really know like an answer at the moment right now.
Okay.
But, yeah.
No worries. We're going to go through both of them so you can see the overview of both. But I wasn't sure if some of you have already started building quizzes. I think most, so it sounds like you're still in the migration phase.
Yeah, I signed up for orientation. The only thing I know is that the quizzes and the new quizzes should be popping up if you have one like approaching soon. The only thing I do know that it'll pop up once it's, I believe the the prompt or the Cal State University, the essay, I believe, and it should pop up.
Okay, perfect. All right. I'm going to go into a Canvas course and I'm going to walk through both of the quizzing tools so you can see high-level overview of both, and we'll kind of talk through the differences. Yes, Chad, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I was just wondering before you get started, we're giving faculty at Long Beach the option to use either classic or new quizzes. So we do have that available, but faculty have to actually turn it on in their settings. It defaults to off. So I was wondering if maybe you could just go real quickly how to turn that on in settings.
Sure, I can do that. Let's actually start with that. So if you're inside of your Canvas course, so it sounds like you have it on as an opt-in option.
It's an option, but it has to actually be turned on as an option in settings.
Yep. So they'll go inside of their course and go to settings and go to feature options, and where it says new quizzes, they'll click the little, it's probably a line or the red X, click that drop down and click enable. And then that will give them the option to choose classic quiz or new quiz whenever they go and click that plus quiz button. Perfect.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm going to go to my quizzes page really quickly and show you a brief overview of it. So whenever you first migrate quizzes into Canvas, they will likely come in as classic quizzes, especially if it's turned off. But typically with the migration process, they'll come in as classic quizzes unless you choose that option to migrate them in as new quizzes. So to tell the difference whenever you start building out quizzes, and if you want to use both in your course, which you can, there's a little rocket ship. If the rocket ship is outlined, that means it's a classic quiz. And if the rocket ship is filled in, then that's a new quiz. And so that's the easiest way to tell the differences between the two if you decide to use both of the quizzing tools in your course, which you absolutely can. I've personally used like classic quizzes for kind of more like formative assessments, quick, checking of competency, practice quizzes. And then for my full assessments, I would use new quizzes. And I used new quizzes just because I liked the interface a little bit better with some of the settings that are available there. So let's take a look at a new quiz. So whenever you click plus quiz, once you go into your settings and enable new quizzes in your course, you're going to see this box pop up, and it's going to pop up each time unless you check this remember my choice for this course, where you can decide, are you going to start with a classic quiz or a new quiz? If you're going to be using both, I wouldn't check this box. That way you can make sure as it pops up, you can choose either classic or new quiz as you need. So we're going to do a classic quiz. So when it comes to quizzing, you'll put in, very similar to creating assignments, you'll put in the name of the quiz. And then down here in this body, in this box, you can put any details that your students need to know. So any directions for the quiz, if you have time limits, letting them know that there, anything students need to know before they click, start quiz or begin quiz. You also have this rich content editor here. So if you need to add in any videos with kind of instructions or links or anything like that, or embed any images or documents, you can use the rich content editor to do that. Down here, you'll choose what type of quiz it is. There are 4 different types of quizzes that you can make with the classic quizzes. So you can do a regular graded quiz, practice quiz, or you have 2 different options for surveys. So it would be graded or ungraded. You'd use graded if you wanted students to complete a survey or complete something for feedback and give them full points. And then you would do ungraded if you don't want to associate any points with it, but you do want to take feedback from your students. And when you choose surveys, you also have that option to keep it anonymous. But for now, we'll focus mostly on the graded quizzes piece. The next thing would be your assignment groups. If you have weighted grade categories set up, then you'd go ahead and choose that appropriate assignment group from this list. Then you'll see a couple options. So you won't have this option, so you can ignore that. The first one will be shuffle answers. This will allow you to shuffle answers inside of the question. So in classic quizzes, there is not the option to shuffle questions and answer order, the only option is going to be to shuffle the order of the answers inside of each question. You can put in a time limit. You can allow multiple attempts. By default, there's only going to be one attempt for a quiz, which is typically what we do. But if you want to, you can allow multiple attempts and then let Canvas know which score you would like the system to keep. So the highest, the latest, or the most recent attempt, or an average of all of the attempts together. So if a student has 3 chances to take a quiz and you did average, it would just take the average of the grade from those 3 different attempts. And then you'll put in the number here and let the system know exactly how many attempts you would like the students to have. This box down here is more of a feedback. What do you want the students to see after they submit the quiz? Do you want them to see the questions, what answer they've chosen, and if that's correct or not? If you do that, you'll keep that box checked. You can also say they can only see it once after each attempt. Like once they go in, they can review their results and that's it, only one time. And then you can decide if the correct answers will be displayed. So if you want students to see their answer choice and it marks it as correct, or if it's incorrect, it will reveal the answer choice, then you'll leave this box checked here. And you can also put in a date range of when the correct answers will be shown. Yes, Chad.
Yeah, I noticed that on your screen, you don't have display grade as an option. Are you still in classic quizzes?
Yes, this is classic quizzes.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're still describing classic quizzes. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you were doing new quizzes.
Oh, no, not yet. Not yet. Okay. You also can, show one question at a time. So by default, it'll show all of the questions. If you wanted to do one question at a time, you'll check this box. Students can toggle back and forth between questions pretty easily. And the rest of this is going to be the same as you put on assignments, assigning it to everyone in your course and giving them a due date and time. You can also put it available from and until date, which is basically the locking and unlock date for this particular quiz. Once you're ready, you'll start to go in and build out your questions. And so you'll click on the questions tab and you'll click either new question, and then a box will pop up and you'll decide what type of question is this going to be. There's several different types that you can choose. So multiple choice, true, false, all of those are there. We also have like essay, file upload if you want your students to upload an attachment. So you can choose from any of these different answer choices. Here, where it says question, this is where you'll put information that is not going to be visible necessarily to students. This will be for you later if you decide to put this question in a question bank. This will help you easily identify that question. So if it's a specific chapter, unit, or topic, then you can put that information there. And then in this box is where you'll pose the question for the quiz. And then down here, you'll put in the correct answers. By default, the correct answers at the top. But if you do shuffle your answers, then it'll shuffle the order that these answer choices are shown in. You can also put the correct answer here if you wanted to. Just click the green arrow to highlight the box where the correct answer is going to be. Next to each of these, you'll see a little box. It'll be red if it's one of those possible answers. It'll be green if it's the correct answer. If you click this box, this will allow you to leave feedback for students if they choose that specific answer choice. Same thing down here for correct answers, or down at the bottom, you have the ability to leave overall feedback for the correct answer or any correct answers, or you can leave general feedback for this question in general. So no matter what answer choice the student chooses, they'll get this feedback from you. Any questions about any of those settings or, creating a question? Okay. Other things that you can do with classic quizzes is if you have, and let me scroll down really quick. You can also, if you have question banks already, you can find them, right? If you click find, it'll pull up all of your question banks that are there, and you can go through the banks and insert questions individually, or you could click select all if you wanted to submit all of the questions from a particular question bank. And then if you do question group, this will allow you to do kind of randomization. So you'll link it to a question bank. So you'll find a question bank, maybe it's this one. And let's just say I wanted to pick out of this question bank has 13 questions. I wanted to pick 10. And I want these to have 2 points per question, right? Students get 2 points per the question. And so you'll create the group, and then it'll randomly pull out 10 questions from that bank and assign 2 points to each of those questions for your students. So it'll allow everyone to kind of get a kind of different version of the quiz, if you will. And as you can see here, I have the ability to do like this question group, plus I can still add in individual questions as well. So if you had additional questions that you wanted to be the same for all students, you would add those in individually. Any questions about adding in those question groups or finding questions from the different question banks? And if you think of anything, you feel free to pop it in the chat, and I'm going to be monitoring that as well. So once you've made your quiz, you'll save and publish. And once your students take the quiz, you will have the ability to see the results in a couple different ways. So I'm going to show you a quiz that's already done. So here I have the ability to see quiz statistics. Once you click on this, after students have taken the quiz, it'll give you a breakdown percentage of like the average score. It'll break down by question and let you know the percentage of students that chose the correct answer versus the incorrect answers. So if you want that information, that can all be shown here on this quiz summary report. And then you can also download this if you want student analysis, so how students did, or if you want the question breakdown, you can download both of those as CSVs as well. You also have, back on this quiz detail page, you have the option to moderate the quiz. And so this will show you all of the students that have been assigned this quiz. If you click everyone, it'll be everyone that's in your course. And you can see the time, how many attempts are left. By default, you get 1 attempt, right? So once a student takes the quiz, it'll switch it to 0. Unless you go in and allow additional attempts, then it'll show that here. You'll also see their score whenever their score has been generated. And then you can choose this little pencil here if you want to give that student additional attempts or give them extra time on this particular quiz. So this allows you to moderate as well directly inside of this quiz details section. And that's a high level overview of classic quizzes. You do also have the ability to go in if you add in like an essay question or a file upload, you would go into SpeedGrader and you can quickly get to that question and grade and give the students feedback as well inside of SpeedGrader. You also can attach a rubric. So if you have like essay questions, short answer questions, or something like that, if you go and click the 3 dots at the top and click show rubric, you can add a rubric as well. Now the rubric is not going to inform scoring. So it's going to be there just to provide criteria and guidance to your students about how you're going to grade them on maybe like those specific written pieces. So keep that in mind. Any questions about classic quizzes before we move on and take a look at new quizzes? Okay.
Oh, I do have one question just here. I'm sorry. So, this came up from faculty feedback. Is there, and I'm assuming the answer is no, because I was kind of doing some research on this before, but is there any way to set a minimum score for a quiz in classic quizzes so that the student has to get a certain threshold score before the quiz is considered passed or pushed to the grade book? This is something that is a request usually from K through 12 teachers, but we have some requests for that as well. And I figured a workaround for the new quizzes, but I just want to confirm that that's not something you can do in classic quizzes.
It's not. The closest thing would be, but it still would go into the grade book. The closest thing would be on modules. You can put in requirements where students have to score at least, a minimum threshold before they can move
right
on to other items. That
so
would be the
yeah,
easiest
release
way to
condition.
do it. Mhm.
The workaround we came up for new quizzes was to actually have a grading scheme. But I can describe that later, but it's not possible in new quizzes either, I'm assuming.
Nope,
Okay.
not to my knowledge. Now I'm happy to take a look and see if there's anything out there, but not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. All right. So let's take a look at new quizzes. Okay. So when you go in and you create a new quiz, you're going to see a different kind of landing page. It's going to look similar to whenever you create assignments. The only difference is you're not going to have that assignments detail box. So you'll name the quiz, you put in the point value, choose the assignment group. You do have that option to display points as, to change it from, or I'm sorry, display grade as, and you can change it from points to a letter grade, or which is basically allows you to do a grading scheme. You can do complete or incomplete, meaning students will get full credit for it, or percentage. So you do have that flexibility there. And you also have the option to choose do not count this toward the final grade if you wanted to. So that's an kind of a workaround for new quizzes if you wanted to do like a practice quiz for your student that doesn't impact their grade in a negative way. The submission type that will already be filled out for you, that is automatically pulled in. The reason it looks like this is because new quiz is an LTI. It is, owned by Canvas, but it is an LTI, so it functions a little bit differently than those classic quizzes, and that's why you'll see that external tool that's pulled in there. Okay. And then you'll come in and you'll put in your due date and availability date as needed, and you'll click build. Once you click on build, this is going to take you into the new quiz grading interface. And so I want to show you a couple different things that are available in here, as well as show you some of the different question types that are not necessarily available on classic quizzes. So the first thing you'll see here is the title. You can add instructions here in this box. So very similar to classic quizzes where there is that detail box, you can do that here in new quizzes. Now, one of the main differences right now between classic quizzes and new quizzes is you see that this rich content editor is different than it is on other places in Canvas. That is something that's going to be addressed very soon, and I'll show you something at the end to show you kind of where we are in that process. But that is something to think about if you want to use new quizzes. The rich content editor is going to be a little bit different. So it just may be a little bit of a different flow if you want to embed images or documents, because it's not as straightforward as the other one. I think images are fine because you can upload them pretty quickly. So if I click upload media, I can browse my device and upload things here. But it doesn't give you the option to browse like your course files like you would be able to on classic quizzes. Yes, chat.
Yeah, so the rich text editor is available for the instructions. Is it available for the questions themselves?
But it'll
good,
still be
perfect.
a modified version of it. So
And in the
still be
future, will it
different.
have the full version? Just like,
Yep, that's
perfect.
the plan. And at the end of this year, there'll be the first update to this rich content editor. So I'll show you some information on that. And I think, because do you have admin access?
Not exactly. We have kind of a tooled ID access.
Okay, I'll provide you some documentation on it so you can see
Perfect.
it.
That's good to hear. Thanks.
Okay. And then, yeah, you're correct. If you want to, that box just pop up on questions. So whenever you're ready to add a question, you'll click this plus blue button and you'll see it throughout as you build questions. And this will allow you to choose the question type. So we have all of the same ones that are available on classic quizzes with the addition of a couple new ones. So categorization, hotspot, ordering, and stimulus are the newer ones that are available on new quizzes that are not on classic quizzes. So this is an example of a hotspot question. This question allows you to upload an image and you get to circle or highlight an area where you would like your students to click in. If they click into that area, then that question will be marked as correct. So in this example here, I have a world map and I want my students to identify South America. So as long as they click anywhere in this blue box, that question will be correct. Now, if you have a situation where you want them to click in multiple places, you would need to create multiple questions with this image. You can only highlight one correct answer area at a time. So that's something to keep in mind for that. The next one is categorization. So this one allows you to put in categories, and you can have students drag and drop different items into the categories. So in this example, I just did a basic even numbers versus odd numbers. I've put in the answer choices. You can also put in distractors if you wanted to as well, and your students will drag and drop, or for accessibility purposes, they also have the ability to click these dots and identify the category in that way. Then we have our normal multiple choice questions with multiple choice and all of the questions. Similar to how I showed you in classic quizzes, you do have the ability to leave feedback for your students for, choosing the correct answer, the incorrect, or for the question overall. And I'll show you that in just a moment. The next one is going to be ordering. So if you want your students to put something in order from like largest to smallest, chronological order, whatever makes sense to your particular course, you can do that with ordering. And it'll work the same way as that categorization. Students can drag and drop or click next to the name of that particular item and put it in the correct order. We also have stimulus. This is probably one of my favorite question types on new quizzes. So you can attach a video or an image and as a question, as a part of questions, and then you can attach specific questions to that stimulus. So on this image here, I have attached 2 different questions to it. And so when you click attach questions, you'll get a full list of all of the different question types, and you can attach it directly to this stimuli. And then we also have with fill in the blank, you have 3 different ways that you can do fill in the blank. So one is just a normal, what's called open entry, which is just text-based. Students will type the correct answer. And then whenever you choose fill in the blank with this open entry, you can decide how close of a match that answer needs to be. Does it need to be exact, close enough? So that is something that I really like a lot. You can also do a drop down. So again, you'll choose fill in the blank, and you can choose either open entry, drop down, or you can also choose this down here, which is kind of like a word bank where students can drag and drop the correct answer into that particular question or the blanks in that sentence. So those are all the different question types. And let me just show you really quickly whenever you add one. So if I did multiple choice, very important when you're building new quizzes, because I know this is not intuitive. I'm not sure why it says this way, but question title is going to be there for the item bank purposes. That is not where you're going to pose the question to the student. The question stem, this box down here, is where you're going to ask the questions that your student needs to answer. So that's something important to keep in mind. And then here you'll put in the answer choices, and you'll see that rich content editor is there. So you can modify or customize those different answer choices as needed. The feedback column is going to be right here, that little comment box. So this is where you can leave feedback for that particular answer. Or if you come down here where the point value is, you will click this, and then it'll pop up a box, and you can leave overall feedback for the correct answer, incorrect, or for this question overall. And again, all of those will allow you to add in the rich content editor to modify or customize it as you need to. And you can add or delete as many answer choices as you need to on most of those question types. And then when you're ready, you can click done. And then it's ready for, you'll click return, and you'll click save and publish when you're ready for your students to access this quiz. So I'm just going to pause just for a moment just to see any questions about getting into new quizzes or setting up the question types. Okay. So let's take a look at some of the settings that are available. So if you click on settings up here at the top, You'll see you have the option to shuffle questions and answers. And so if you have a stimulus in there, it'll know to keep those questions with that particular stimulus, even if you shuffle the questions. You have the option to do one question at a time. You have a passcode or access code. You can add in a time limit if you want to. Down here, you will determine how many attempts the students will get. So by default, this will be off. So all students will get one attempt. If you turn this on, then you'll see similar options to what we had on classic quizzes, where you can determine the number of attempts students will get. And then you will also determine what score is going to be kept. There is an additional option here on new quizzes where you can just keep the first score. So even if you give them additional attempts, you would only keep that initial score. Also, you have the option to add in a waiting period. So if you give your students, let's say maybe 2 or 3 attempts, and you want them to wait maybe 30 minutes in between an attempt or a day or two, you can click require time between attempts and put in the time limit, whether it's hours, minutes, or days that students have to wait before the additional attempt will be opened up. And so this timer will start from after the student clicks submit on that initial attempt, then where it'll count down the minutes, hours, or days from that point. And then down here, the last thing is very similar to what we saw, determining what students will see after they have submitted their quiz. Do you want them to be able to see their results? Do you want it to be marked as correct or incorrect? Do you want the correct answer revealed? So you have all those options here, and you can select or deselect a combination of these options to control what your students see after the quiz has been submitted. The other thing we have is moderate. And so moderate will look very similar to what we saw in classic quizzes. You have the name of the student, the number of what number of attempt they're on, their score, how long it took. And then you also have the option to click on view log. So this would allow you to go in and see a log of how long students stayed on a question, if they've clicked back and forth between questions. That's essentially what the log is. Now, what is different about new quizzes that's not available in classic quizzes is this accommodations tab. So if you click on this pencil, you have the ability to give time adjustments. So if you need to remove time, give the student additional time, or add in a time multiplier, something like maybe the student gets 1.5 times more than the other students. You can add any of that here. What's great is that once you apply an accommodation to a student on one new quiz, it will automatically be applied to all new quizzes going forward. So you only have to do this once, and whenever you go and create new quizzes, those accommodations will be automatically tacked on. And so this is one of the reasons why I really like new quizzes, because I only have to do it once and you don't have to, remember to add that in each time. You also have this moderate tab here, and this would allow you to give students additional attempts, and you can also adjust time for this particular quiz. So this would be something if you needed to just do it one time for this quiz, you would use the moderate option as opposed to accommodations. So I'm gonna pause just to see, does anyone have any questions about any of the settings or that moderate tab? Other things that you can do is you have the ability to pull reports. So the quiz and item analysis report is going to show you information about how students did overall in the quiz, as well as gives you a breakdown of the questions and the answer choices with percentages of students that chose, the incorrect answer versus the other possible answers for those questions. One thing to note with new quizzes is that this report is going to take up to 24 hours to generate after students have submitted their quiz. So know that this is not going to be something that's a real-time report that you can pull. You will need to wait a day or so after all of the students have submitted their quiz in order to pull this particular report. And at this time, there's not an option to download it as a CSV. So it would be it's a nice visual report, but you can only see it inside of this particular quiz. If we go back to the build tab, You'll see 3 dots up here, and this will allow you to get to your item banks, which are the same as question banks. If you want to bank questions, you can go there and pull them in from there. You also have the ability to print new quizzes, which you cannot do on classic quizzes. So if you want to print a key with the answers, you can do that, or you can just print a blank quiz. So if you have a situation where maybe a student is going to take it on pen and paper and you'll enter the grade manually into the grade book, then you could do print a blank quiz and give it to students in that way. Other things that you can do is, I'm going to go down and add another question really quickly, is whenever you add a question where it says add to bank, you can automatically add questions to a bank as well if you needed to. On new quizzes, the item banks are all going to be stored either here or under that tab that says item banks inside of your course, so you can access them in that way. So I click on manage item banks. I can see the ones that are available inside of this course and pull questions out from there as well. Any questions so far about any of these things?
Yeah, I did have one issue. One pain point that's come up with faculty during our migration is oh no, I'm blanking. It was I lost my train of thought. Keep going and I'll come back to it.
Okay, I'll come back to you at the end and see if it popped in, or pop it in the chat when you remember. Anyone else, any questions about building the new quizzes or settings, moderation, anything like that? So this,
I remember now. I'm sorry.
go ahead.
So it's about the question banks. One pain point that some faculty are having is, they have fairly complex question banks that are coming over from Beachboard or D2L. So there doesn't seem to be a direct connection between question banks that come over from D2L and the banks in Canvas. Do you know of any issue there about
the
that?
That come over from D2L should go into question banks, but I know that there are some limitations right now when you pull things in from other learning management systems. That's where they go. They won't go into item banks, but you can, with the migration process, obviously they want to bulk bring those in. They should see them there. If not, another workaround is they can import if they go into settings and go into import course content. If they do, it's probably a QTI zip file for most of those questions. If they do that, they can import it in that way. And then they can decide if they want to import it into new quizzes.
But you're saying that the question banks from D2L will automatically turn into item banks?
Question banks.
So can you describe again the difference between a question bank and an item bank? Because
Sure.
I think that's kind of a confusing thing, I think, for those who are new.
Question banks are for classic quizzes and item banks are for new quizzes. They're the same functionality, they're just attached to the different quizzing tools. That's the only difference.
Okay.
And most things when they come through migration will go to classic quizzes, which means they would come in as, if you have banks or pools, they would come in as question banks inside of Canvas.
And so is there a way to migrate those question banks to item banks for new quizzes in the same way that you migrate a classic quiz to a new quiz?
Not right now. They're testing that out in beta for a bulk migration from question banks to item banks. But right now there is not a way to do that. Straightforward. I mean, it's the workaround is a lot of different steps, right? So it would be putting everything from a question bank onto a classic quiz, migrating that into a new quiz, and then rebuilding the item banks. You also, which is a lot of steps. You also, if you go into item banks, you can, let me just go into one. If you create a new item bank, I didn't create this, but if you create an item bank, and you click the three dots, you can import content. And if it's like a QTI file format, like with most publisher things are like that, then it would import into an item bank. But the bulk migration is still being beta tested at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
And Courtney, the answer to your question is it should be, and you would have to ask your admins. Typically, when a D2L migration comes in, it would be a classic quiz, unless you guys have noted that differently. And I don't think you guys have new quizzes on at the moment, so it would, unless you turned it on at your course level, it was more than likely would come in as a classic quiz for you.
Yeah, I definitely noticed they all come in as classic.
Yeah, that's usually the default. And then I know Jennifer, I think, had her hand up.
Yeah, thank you. So I wanted to also double check because I saw you had the differences between the two different the classic and the new is what will eventually be happening at some point, correct? Is that going to be, do we still get to choose between these, or
Still get to choose? They're not gonna so classic quizzes is no longer going to be depreciated like it was originally in June 2024. Both quizzing platforms will stay.
Okay.
So you can choose. And so at the course level, if you go into your settings,
Okay.
it should be enabled. I think it's turned on at your school. If you go into,
Yeah.
Go into settings and then go to feature options.
Mhm.
And then if you go down to new quizzes, just click that red circle and change it to enabled.
Okay.
Whenever you go to create a quiz, it'll ask you, do you want it to be classic quiz or new quiz? And you can choose at that time.
Okay. And then just to make sure too, and in classic quizzes, the also set up where you can't do multi-select answers for multiple choice questions.
Like multiple answer. Yeah, you would do that in new quizzes.
Okay, so new quizzes does have that feature, but not in the classics, right?
I think there is multiple answer. Hang on, let's go back to
I think I remember having to find a workaround, I think was the case for the classics.
There for sure is one in new quizzes, like
Okay.
Where is that at? Here we go, multiple answer.
Okay.
So you choose, and the students would choose all of them.
Got it.
And I think there is one in classic quizzes. Let's take a look. There was. New question. Yeah, multiple answers.
Okay, so they both do. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And then what you do is put in all the answers, and then you'll just choose the little
Correct
arrows
ones.
to mark which ones are correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's the Likert questions that don't migrate from
Okay.
D2L.
The Likert. Okay.
Yeah,
That's probably
you can
confusing.
create Likert questions from scratch just using multiple choice, but the Likert question type doesn't come over. There's no equivalent.
Okay, so there's no question type for Likert. It's just like a multiple answer or a multiple choice,
Right?
where you create the option. Okay.
Yeah, and I think you got to, I think you even have to, I don't even know if that's possible, because the thing with Likert is a survey question essentially.
Mhm.
So you would
Like a Likert
it's like a
scale.
non-graded
Right.
survey question.
Mhm.
So yeah.
We don't have an answer choice just like that in either of the quizzing tools right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So now that we've taken a look at them, some highlights of things for, thinking about new quizzes. So new quizzes, can be shared fairly easy. They can only just be shared within your Canvas instance. So if you wanted to share out new quizzes to like other CSUs, you can't do that at this moment. They will only work inside of your Canvas instance. You have the ability to duplicate quizzes if you need to. If you just click the three dots next to the name, you can duplicate it. Most third-party tools don't work yet with new quizzes, but Respondus Lockdown Browser does. So if you're using proctoring software, then you would need to stick with classic quizzes for those type of assessments. And actually, this is just updated. Blueprints do work now on additional syncs. This was just updated a couple weeks ago, I think at the beginning of or mid-October. classic quizzes can be migrated to new quizzes pretty easily. So if you have quizzes inside of your course that are already created and you're wondering, okay, what would this look like maybe as a new quiz? If you go to your quizzing page and you click the 3 dots next to that classic quiz, you can click migrate and it'll make a copy of that quiz in the new quizzing platform. And it won't take away that original one. It'll still be there, but it'll just make a copy for you to go in, and you can publish it if you want to, or if you just want to review and see what it would look like in a new quiz, you can do that as well. Other things to think about is the rich content editor right now is modified. And so at the moment, it doesn't have that HTML editor, the accessibility checker built in, or that built-in media recorder like you would see on the rich content editor on like classic quizzes or, you know, assignments or pages. So keep that in mind. There's no option to pull in files from your course files. So whenever you upload images or anything like that, it'd be something that'd be pulled from your device. We do have some updates that are coming to new quizzes, and I'm going to pop this link in the chat and I'll share this as well with the resources. So right now, these are going to be all the things that are going to be changed within this quarter, which means by the end of the year. These are things that the product team is going to adjust. And one thing I wanted to point out was the rich content editor, right? So these are the things that are going to be updated on the rich content editor. It's going to be done in phases. So first thing is you'll be able to add in that HTML view. You'll have the accessibility checker there, word count, as well as the math editor will be updated. So it works the same as the one in the standard rich content editor. We've had feedback from, I would say, mostly like science, engineering, and some math, that they don't really love the equation editor that's in new quizzes. So that'll be updated. And then the media recorder will be added because that's super important for accessibility. So if you wanted to add in an audio, video file to your questions, you know, it would be a little bit more simplified for you to record directly from inside of the quiz versus having to record it and then upload it in. So it's ease of usability, if you will. And then those will also be things that students will be able to see minus HTML. So if you have like a file upload or essay question or open answer question and you want them to respond, you know, using a video or something like that, then they should be able to do that because the media recorder would be available in the rich content editor for them to use as well. You can also take a look at a couple different things that are coming up. If you have thought about using outcomes in your course and you've heard previously, you know, that outcomes, although they work better in new quizzes, don't push up to like the Learning Mastery Gradebook or reporting outside of that quiz. That is also going to change. I believe that release is coming in November 19th. So if you decide to attach outcomes in any way to your new quizzes, those results will be available in that Learning Mastery Gradebook as well. Okay. And then there's also, if you're using blueprinting at all, there are also some additional functionalities coming to new quizzes that will allow you to lock questions inside of new quizzes as well. So I'm going to pause just to see, are there any questions about any of these updates? Oh, one more. You can jump to a single like quiz question very quickly. So let's just say you have a large quiz and you need to grade like an essay question. You can go into Speed Grader like you can right now with new classic quizzes, click the number of that question and quickly get to it to grade your students. So that will also be updated as well. Okay, now does anyone have questions? Yes, Chad.
Yeah, did you already go over how to migrate a classic to a new quiz?
Yes. So
oh, sorry.
No worries, no worries. So if you go into your quizzes, you look for that rocket ship that's outlined next to, and I'm just on my quizzes page. Next to the name of the quiz, you'll click those 3 dots and click on migrate.
But one thing I found is that you do have to have that new quizzes option turned on in settings, or that migrate item doesn't appear on the drop down.
Correct. So they'll need to go into the back into the settings and turn on that feature option for their course. And just to, for instructors that are on the call, make sure that if you want to use new quizzes in all your courses, you will have to go to each course and go into settings to turn that option on to use new quizzes. So it's a per course kind of opt-in for that option. So keep that in mind, and it'll help alleviate some frustration. If you turn it on in one, just go turn it on in all of them. So as you're thinking about this, which of these two tools do you feel like would be, one you would use? Are we leaning more towards? I know right now some of you are still going through migration, so you're not quite sure yet, but just based off of the settings and the differences that I've showed you today, are we thinking we want to go with new quizzes or classic quizzes? And pop your answer into the chat. And while you're doing that, I'm going to put up the comparison image again as well. Okay. Prefer new quizzes. The interface is easier and more intuitive. Okay. And then I know a few of you kind of popped in a little bit after we said this, but you do have the ability to use both. So you don't necessarily have to make a decision. I would just explain it to your students that there are two different quizzing tools, and so it might look a little different, but it's going to work in the same way. Yep, new quizzes, but it truly depends on the needs of faculty. Absolutely. If they're using proctoring software, then I would say stick with classic quizzes, but if you don't need any of those things that are built into classic quizzes, then you can absolutely try out new quizzes.
That was one question I was just going to ask, actually, was about the proctoring. That's one thing that keeps some faculty from moving over to new quizzes, I think, because a lot of faculty here do use Respondus lockdown browser.
It will work with Respondus. That's the only one it works with now. So you can use.
Oh, so it does work with Respondus.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It'd be more like Proctorio.
Okay.
Things like that, where you need to use kind of an LTI connection to make it work.
Okay. Good to know.
Will work with it. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's good to know. So it does work with Respondus. Good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can pull both. Whenever you go into Respondus, you can choose a newer classic quiz. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's just more so if they need other like integrations or built-in things, then classic quizzes works a little bit better. Okay. And then of course, one thing that I always like to highlight with new quizzes is that since there's more interactive question types, you can also use those for activities. It doesn't necessarily have to be an assessment or a quiz or test or anything like that. You could absolutely build out a new quiz to be a part of an activity for your students to work through. So I've seen the stimulus question used a lot. Maybe they watch a video, they'll answer a couple questions just to make sure they have an understanding of that particular subject matter or topic. You can use hotspot questions. There's numerous ways that you can build out different learning activities for your students. So if that's something you're interested in and you're comfortable with the kind of foundations of Canvas, maybe that'd be something you could add into spring and to think about. And we'll provide some resources about some examples of how you could possibly go through and use new quizzes for more kind of activity-based assignments as well. All right, awesome.
I'd be very interested in looking at those resources, if you can provide those. That's where we like to try to encourage faculty to use those quizzes as a kind of learning activity, low stakes learning activity. That'd be great if we could look at some of those examples.
Yep, I'll provide a link to it. And then also, with this new quizzes, if you just really want to know what's going on with new quizzes and you want to kind of stay up to date, if you go into that link I popped in, this roadmap is really great to take a look at, but you also can click the three dots here and click subscribe. And so anytime there's kind of an update to new quizzes, then you'll get an email with some information about it. And then you can also look and see what things we're taking a look at of adding, early next year as well. Awesome. I know the next thing that they're going to be working on after the rich content editor is giving you the ability to export out those reports that come with new quizzes. So that'll be something that I think that a lot of faculty will be looking forward to, because that's also something that I hear. And if you want to see, this is an example of what that report looks like from new quizzes. So you'll get the question, and then you'll get kind of this information here. And if you click on the question, it'll break it down and let you know the percentage of, the answer choices and how many people chose it. And then you can also click, directly on that hyperlink to go to that student's quiz. And as we're still testing out the bulk migration of question banks to item banks, that is still something that's in beta. So I'm not sure exactly when that would be available and live for you all to do in a quick and easy way at this point. So, well, I hope that you all kind of walked away learning something, and I'll stick around for a couple more minutes just to see if there's any questions. And if not, I hope you all have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, Tashira. That was very informative. Thanks.
Welcome. Welcome.